Welcome to NocBro Nation.
Welcome back, guys. Jarrell here.
And I'm Josh, and today we're here to go over part 2 of the most recent Scott Gimple interview with Entertainment Weekly. In this part, we will be talking about World Beyond, and, let's read into it.
Yeah, guys, so if you guys have already, sorry for the delay, Josh had some family in town, and I didn't want to do these videos without him because it has some really good topics that we wanted to go over. If you've already seen the news, just feel free to just watch along and just get our reactions to some of this information. If you're watching new and haven't heard about it, this is a good source. So the first part was about the Rick Grimes update, which was a pretty good part for part 1. So in part 2, the EW interviewer sat down with Walking Dead Scott Gimple and also the co-creator of The Walking Dead World Beyond, Matthew Negrete.
Now, keep in mind, guys, once we go into this, we only took snippets, like the most important parts of the interview. We're not going over the full interview, just
yeah. We'll put the link. We'll put the link in the description so you can look at the other stuff. So they'll be going over the time to see if the World Beyond's timeline matches up with the Mothership show, why it takes place in Nebraska, our home state, and if each of the rings in CRM will appear on each of the Walking Dead shows, and what other crossovers may be in the works.
Yes,
so let us get into this.
So, where do you want to start? You want me to start?
Yep, go ahead.
Now that we've talked about the Walking Dead movie, let's move over to World Beyond. This is the Entertainment Weekly individual asking Scott Gimple, does this show line up time-wise with where we are now in The Walking Dead? Scott Gimple, technically, it's a little behind, but not much. Not enough for people to notice.
Makes sense. I mean, we've gotten from the World Beyond, it's 10 years into the apocalypse, which is basically where The Walking Dead is. So I'm sure it's maybe a few months behind.
So in other words, it's pretty close.
Maybe a year behind.
Close enough to where you could merge, right? But obviously, there's no discussion of that. But Entertainment Weekly, just to close up this particular topic, so it's not completely simultaneous. It's just a little bit back. Scott Gimple, it's very, very close to being simultaneous, but a little bit back, yes. You said the same thing.
Right.
Not in any way that anyone will possibly notice.
So he's basically repeating the question and repeating the answer. So yes,
absolutely nothing.
Yeah, absolutely nothing in that one. So this one, Entertainment Weekly asked, we saw the 3-ring CRM group that we've already encountered on The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead very prominently in the last World Beyond teaser. What can you say about this new show, or how this new show relates to some of the things we've already seen and connecting some of these threads you all have laid out? Scott Gimple goes on to say, we're going to be discovering this very big aspect of the world that we haven't yet seen. We've seen glimpses of this on the shows with the helicopters and with the soldier that we saw, Isabel, on Fear. The movie does obviously touch upon some of that mythology, as well as Rick being in one of those helicopters. In some ways, World Beyond, it's a big story, and yet it's sort of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to Rick's Hamlet.
Come on.
Meaning the show and the movie touch upon some of the same things, but they're not really that deeply related. We'll learn more, though, about that group, that civilization, the nature of some other civilizations of the world through World Beyond, and that will give some of the background for the world that Rick finds himself in. But the story of World Beyond doesn't really intersect with the movies other than they shared knowledge and interaction with some of these bigger things going on in the world. So that's pretty interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Isn't it crazy how we've grown to know this world as an outbreak that happened and there wasn't too much of humanity left?
Mm-hmm.
And now we've grown to, there are several communities, large communities, that are now in existence.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see these larger communities, how they became about, right?
Yeah.
Did they start from small communities like Alexandria? It'd be interesting.
Yeah. So it kind of closes up. He kind of goes into another piece of it. He says, we see the 3 rings, assuming 3 different communities. You now have 3 Walking Dead shows. Is there a world where we see each of these communities on one of these shows? And Gimple just says, oh lordy. And the Entertainment Weekly interviewer says, I'm just doing the math, Scott. I'm just doing the math. You want me to read this part?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Scott Gimple goes in to say, no, I'm actually loving it. I will say, though, this mythology appeared on The Walking Dead and on Fear the Walking Dead. Those 2 shows aren't going to be as involved with this. We don't want to change all the Walking Dead to having to do with this. I'll wax and wane. It'll occasionally touch upon it, but really there's going to be a brand new mythologies on each of these shows and even outside these shows. This is not the new mythology for The Walking Dead. This is not the new mythology for the Walking Dead universe. The new show is tied into it quite a bit. The movie is as well, but it isn't going to be the driving force throughout all the shows on the universe.
Yeah, in other words, I think if I'm reading into this correctly, I think the interviewer probably got everything right there in that question.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably shocked Scott Gimple.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like to me that if I were a betting man, I would probably do a show per community.
Yeah.
And you're increasing your audience. You're increasing your chances for one of those shows to be a hit.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the one thing that I'm kind of good with is that they want to keep it separate. I mean, they're giving us a little Easter eggs in each show, but then you're going to really focus on it in The World Beyond and other things in Rick. Like The Walking Dead has its own problems right now. Not problems with the show, but problems meaning the story going on.
Yeah.
Don't have to deal with CRM, and also Fear the Walking Dead. So
I just hope that it's not crossover central, crossover city.
Yeah.
You know,
there's things about crossover coming up in the interviews and also in other parts.
Yeah, we'll touch on that later. But yeah,
cool. So we're in the next part. Yep.
All right. So Scott Gimple says, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do share a universe. Though it is really cool to see how this different corner of the universe operates and the lives that they have been living all this time. It will be these little places that cross. We've been talking about aspects of the next season of World Beyond, so that's interesting. They're already discussing next season.
Mm-hmm.
There might even be a big aspect of the crossover with one of the shows. That's the other part of this that we have these plans, but we've got to execute them. That's sort of the next season. We're still finishing up this season. That said, unlike reality today, these worlds are so isolated from each other because of the lack of mass communications, mass transportation. In some ways, they're like little islands from each other. So when they have those crosses, it's kind of wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, we got to keep it separate, and we know that CRM has helicopters, but I think they only use them for specific means. I don't think they're going to use it for a lot of traveling, but we never know.
But I like what he says about different islands. Like, of course, there is an opportunity for one of these communities to actually run into the other, and you get those natural crossovers.
Yeah. So this is where we get into our home state. So the interviewer asked, this new show takes place in Nebraska, is that right? And Gimple says it does, though not exclusively there. Why Nebraska?
Hey, watch it.
Why Nebraska? That's a great question. It was a different place that conceivably could have had their own things going on there. It wasn't like West Virginia or Southern Georgia. We wanted to show a different life. It's not even like we're honing up on aspects of Nebraskan life. It's just more conceivably a different place where there would be no cross between them. Which is true. We've got Easter eggs of, Nebraska being in The Walking Dead, back in like season 3, I think it was, or season 2. It's just cool. And knowing that we're going to be CRM's, one of their headquarters is going to be in Nebraska, which is pretty cool for us because we live here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Omaha.
From the possible leaked footage, it could be Omaha,
which is our exact city.
Yeah,
so that's just awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So Entertainment Weekly, that leads well into my next question. We've talked about the similarities between the shows and the tie-ins and crossovers, but what makes this show different from the other two besides just the location? So Scott Gimple goes on to say, I mean, there's a lot of things that make it different. The first one is really the situation in which the characters have been living in relatively a first world situation, relatively. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's focusing on young people, even the adults in this are the younger side. They've more or less grown up with this. There's a certain everydayness of this to them, though they've been behind walls. So that's interesting. We're talking about a group that's always lived in this situation. So that's completely different from our group. Our group was almost, they were there. They saw it go down.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. It's a very big deal for these characters to leave these walls, even though they aren't like, oh, what are these people? They aren't shocked upon seeing walkers, but it's just they haven't been interacting with them. They haven't had to interact with them. It's an incredible act of bravery for some of these people to potentially step into the world.
And that's what we've seen from the teaser of World Beyond. These kids, they want to go to the city, and they're interacting with walkers. And from what we've seen, they were able to take them down. And from what we've heard about what's going on in CRM, they're trained. So I think everyone is trained to deal with them, but they just don't deal with them on a regular basis.
But training is training is different from seeing them and interacting with them, and it's almost like playing a video game. Like you and I can play a shooting game, but getting a real gun in our hands and actually firing, it's a different story. Mm-hmm. I think that's a completely different aspect of the television show, and I'm going to like that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to like it too. So the final question we have here is, you have 3 Walking Dead shows now and the movies as well. How concerned are you in terms of saturating the market too much? So Gimple says, in my mind, it really was. There was always going to be stories being told, so why don't we tell them? If it's not us, other people will. They always have. There is a sort of signature approach that we have that we do want to mix up as well. We want The Walking Dead to mean different things, and we're going to continue to do that. I think we've reached a point where people enjoy a variety of different stories within the same universe. They understand that as long as we can make these stories different, stand out from one another, they can enjoy all those cool things about that universe, but just feature different characters, different journeys, different emotional palettes, different voices telling these stories. My goal is to do more varied entertainment. Walkers versus people is just one aspect of the story, and there's also a story of the apocalypse, and it's a story of some people trying to put things back together, some people trying to pull them apart, and there's just a universe of stories to be told in there. Our job is to make them as different from one another as possible, so that part of it doesn't feel repetitious. Each show should scratch its own different itch.
Yeah.
Which is very true.
Yeah, and I'm all for, I've said this before in other videos, but I think eventually we're going to get to the point in maybe one of these shows at least where it's no longer about the zombies. Mm-hmm. So much so that we probably don't see many of them very often. And I can see that for this show. Yes, our group is going to be going and traveling to the city, and they're probably going to run into walkers, but not very many, because I'm guessing the walker presence isn't really a threat as much anymore.
Yeah, not really as much. But, I mean, we got some good information from Gimple. I think that, the plans are going to be coming to do more varied entertainment, more different stories and things like that. There's another interview coming up that he kind of dives a little bit deeper into that. I love just hearing The World Beyond is just a little behind The Walking Dead, but it's not going to directly tie into anything. We'll get more on CRM, which will kind of tie into the Rick Grimes movies, but it's going to kind of leave behind our main show and Fear to deal with their own thing and move the story along instead of mixing everything in together.
It almost confirms to you that World Beyond is not CRM. Meaning the communities in there are not necessarily CRM. So maybe these communities are a faction of CRM, but not directly related to, not CRM itself.
Well, from what we know so far, I believe they are. Yes, I believe that main community where the kids come from is one of them.
It doesn't sound like it. At least from what he's saying.
Well, he's just saying he's separating it from The Walking Dead and Fear, but CRM is different, but it is part of The World Beyond. We're going to be getting a lot more of that. Because we've seen the 3-ring, in.
Yes, because that's true.
They wear the jacket. They have all of that. So, but you could be right though. Even though the 3 rings mean 3 communities, we don't know how many outposts they have, or we don't know how many how spread out they are.
Yeah.
So
just because a ring, I guess is what I'm saying. A ring doesn't necessarily designate a community. It could be a collection of communities. And 3 rings could be 3 collections of communities.
Yeah, but the only information we got so far is the 3 rings, Scott Gimple said, signifies 3 separate civilizations. Yeah. Now, that's a different word. Communities is different than civilization. So that was one thing I remember picking up on is communities is different, but civilization.
I mean, you're
talking
about West Coast, East Coast,
right? One of those rings is a civilization which could have many communities.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to find out.
One of those rings could be a bad civilization.
Yeah, the military side or whatever. So, yeah, let us know what you think of part 2. Remember, we'll put the full link in the description. Stay tuned for part 3. We have some cool information coming up from Scott Gimple. And make sure you smash the like button. Feel free to subscribe and stay tuned for more with us. I'm Jarrell.
I'm Josh.
We're NocBro Nation. We're out.